Okay, good morning, everyone. Wow, the classroom is filled. I'm happy to see people in person. Usually the number always goes down. So my name is Hiren Trada. I'm your professor instructor for EE 201. And also for those of you taking EE 251, I'm also teaching 251 in the same classroom. Okay, so that one follows on right after this class. For 201, we meet in person or online if you wish, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then 251 is on Mondays and Fridays from 12 to 3, continuation. And so I want to ask, how many of you have something going on right before this class? Do you have another class before this one? Do you have any other obligations? My intention is to begin at 10. And if that doesn't work for anyone, send me an email. So even if one student tells me that they cannot begin at 10, they would prefer to begin at 10:10, then I will begin always at 10:10. But if everyone agrees, again, it's democracy, if everyone agrees, then I'd like to begin at 10. Okay, so I'll send out an email and I just respond to that email. And if it, if all answers are yes, then I'd like to begin at 10 o'clock every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, that's just in the interest of saving time. So a typical quarter, we meet 3 times a week, 50 minutes each, 150 minutes a week. In the summer, 5-week session, everything is doubled. So we meet 300 minutes a week. But instead of meeting 50 minutes, each class meeting is 1 hour and 50 minutes long. So every week we have an additional 15 minutes extra. So typically what I and most instructors would like to do is we teach for 50 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then again teach for another 50 minutes. Okay, so that's what we'll follow today. We'll start it at like 10:10 or 10:11. We'll go on for 50 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then, resume for the next 50 minutes. And that will give us, we will end around 11:55 or so. Now, several of you have already signed up for the online course. I'm going to go over the website, just hit the, the important points, and then we'll begin. Okay, so let's go over to the website. Now, the way I teach is I structure my course as a UDL, Universal Design for Learning Principles. And so I teach in person. It's also broadcast online via Zoom. And the lecture is also recorded. The only thing that's recorded is what you see on the screen. Nothing else is recorded. Only the web page that is being shared. So only this page that is being shared is recorded, nothing else. Okay, so not even like student names, participants, nothing else is recorded. Now, having said that, students are free to choose whatever works for them. If you wish to attend in person, some students like to do that, being around your fellow students, and being in the classroom environment, that's great. If you wish to attend online, that is also fine. There is an option available to all students. You do not have to notify me. Okay, you do not have to notify me. So several students are online. So those of you who are online, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I will not be able to monitor the chat window. So if you need to ask a question, feel free to interrupt anytime. Okay, feel free to interrupt anytime. And again, this is what I'm asking you to. You're not offending me, okay? And that also goes for the students who are in the classroom, right? Sometimes I might be in a flow. I might just be, talking about a topic. If you need to interrupt me, just interrupt me. That's fine. You can walk in and out of the classroom anytime you want. You don't need to ask my permission. You're not going to offend me. If you want to eat and drink something, that is fine. If you want to look at your mobile phone also, that is fine, as long as you don't create a disturbance, right? You need to use the restroom. You want to get a drink of water. You want to eat something, that's absolutely fine. The only thing I would ask you is, of course, don't make noise that disturbs the learning environment. Also, there are expensive electronics on the table in front of you. So it goes without saying, you don't want any food or drink, especially any liquids going into those electronics, because even a tiny drop of water going in electronics is going to render it useless. That goes for your own personal devices also. So again, walk in and out as you want. You're feeling sleepy, you want to take a nap, that's also fine with me. It doesn't bother me. Let's see. So that's the classroom policies. Again, eat, drink, go out, use the restroom, no permission required. If you want to attend online, the Zoom passcode is on the front page. You see it right there. The link for the Zoom meetings is from the Zoom. It's the same link every week, right? The password is just on there so that only students who are in the classroom would have access to it. That's the only reason, okay? So again, one day, let's say you're feeling sleepy, you don't want to get up and walk to campus, you just want to attend online, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to notify me. If you're absent, again, for whatever reason, you can attend online. You don't have to notify me unless there is a quiz on that day. Okay, if there is a quiz, you do need to notify me. Okay. So again, if you're absent for any reason, I don't take attendance. Attendance is not mandatory. You can feel free to just attend online. It's an option I give to all of my students. Several students in all of my classes, would attend like the first day of class or the first week of class. And then I won't see them again until the final day of the final exam. And that is fine with me. As long as you complete the work that is set in front of you, that's all I care about, okay? So I created my course in a way that it benefits students and student learning. The summer is going to be a little bit different just because there are 20 homework assignments. I might get rid of like 1 or 2 of them depending on the time crunch. Typically, there are 5 assignments on the first week of class in a normal quarter. So 5 days, 5 assignments. That is what you see right now. But doubling it up means you'll be doing 5 or 6 assignments in 3 days. So I've not done that yet. I'm still planning out how it's going to go, the flow of the class and the material we cover. But you will need to be on top of your homework assignments, okay? It'll be impossible for you to get a good grade without doing the homework assignments. Speaking of which, let's go directly in there. So there's class schedule, course information. Hopefully you've all taken a look at that. I'm going to go directly into assignments. So you open the syllabus. So some of these links are doubled from the left side. So syllabus link is the same as what you see on the left. Okay. I'm going to open in a different window. And this is what you're going to see. Communication and office hours, course information, assignments, and grading. I'm going to go directly into assignments and grading. Okay. So course grade is split in 3 parts. There's homework, there's quizzes, there's final exam. The weight given to each of them is such that a single assignment or a single quiz would not affect your overall grade too much. Okay. So homework is a big chunk of your grade. There is an access code purchase that is required. It requires about $52 that you need to spend. I realize it's an extra cost on top of everything else that a student pays, but I've done this for several years, and every quarter, every student, well, I think nearly every student always gives me feedback that yes, it was a purchase, but it was worth it, okay? It was worth it in terms of the learning, and it was worth it in terms of my grades. That's the overwhelming feedback I've gotten over the years, okay? So the homework is a massive 40% of your overall grade. It's not 10% or 15%. So if you do the homework, it is easy to get a decent grade in this class. The flip side is if you don't do the homework, it is very difficult to get a good grade in the class. Okay. There are 20 homework assignments. The first 5 are based on your prereq physics courses. Okay. You've seen those. You have KVL, KCL, power, energy, resistors in series and parallel. That's up to homework 6 and 7, actually. So the first 6, 7 assignments, all about your prereq physics classes. The reason they are important is because the circuit analysis techniques that you learn in this course, they're all based only on 3 laws. Anyone want to guess? First law. Ohm's law, absolutely. V equals IR. And we'll do a refresher on all these courses, okay? So we are required to teach, and I also like to do a refresher. But the assignments are there because they're important. There's a reason for that. So for the first one is Ohm's law. Second one is KCL, Kirchhoff's current law. Third one is KVL, or well, second and third can be interchanged. These are the only three you need to know for the entire course. You don't need to know anything else. Well, anything else as in like when you come into this class, you need to know these three. And again, we will do a refresher. I will go over all these topics in class for all three of those. Ohm's law, KVL, KCL, and then of course the power equation, right? Power equation, P is equal to VI. So these are the three most important ones. All of the other analysis techniques that you are going to learn are based on these three. So it is absolutely essential that each and every one of you can do or can solve electronic circuits using these three laws. And that's the purpose of the first homework assignments. So you need to be adept at skillfully and efficiently applying and correctly applying these three laws. Okay, these three are the most important ones. So the homework assignments, again, there's a purchase code that's required. Do not purchase it outside of Canvas. Okay, outside of Canvas, I think it costs like 65 or 70. Inside Canvas, it's 52. So this is a special pricing that I negotiated with Pearson a few years ago. And I'm hoping to keep it on the down low. So, if they might try to raise the prices if they know. So every few years, especially the last few years, prices have gone up for everything. And so I always like to negotiate the best price. But this is as low as they would go. Okay. But again, homework is a massive 40%. There are two further splits for the homework. So online on Pearson, you would enter the information. There are tutorials. Several students have already registered and begun. They've already submitted the first homework assignment, which is actually due today. So let's see, what was I saying? Let me talk about the split. So the split is 30% and 10% of your overall grade for each homework, right? All of the homework assignments are grouped together as one single point total. It's out of 457 points. And all of that is worth 40%. That 40% is divided into 30 plus 10. The 10 is basically scan and upload. So I'll explain what that means. Now, if it was a typical paper-based assignment, I would tell you, okay, you have to do problem numbers 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. You will write it out on a piece of paper or electronic tablet, and you would turn it in, right? That is basically the scan and upload. Okay, you would do your work, whether it's on paper, whether it's on a digital tablet, doesn't really matter where you do your work, but you'll do your work, right? You'll have something written. It can be as rough and crude as you want. Doesn't have to be neat, as long as it's legible and as long as it is done. Okay, you would scan that work and you will upload on Canvas. Then on Pearson, what you're actually doing, the homework assignment, the questions, the answers, the solutions, everything is online. Okay, so the answers that you obtain, you're going to enter it on Pearson, Mastering Engineering. How many of you have used Pearson's mastering system before? Okay, so several of you have used it, so you're familiar with it. So there is a tutorial at the beginning. It's labeled or titled as homework 00. So it's homework 0. You just take a look at it. It tells you how you're going to enter the data, how you're going to look at the questions, the tutorials, everything. Now, the way I have structured the online assignments is to the benefit of the students. Every homework assignment has extra credit problems, okay? There's tutorials at the beginning. So there's 3 levels of learning. There's tutorials and video solutions. Those are for extra credit. It is optional. You don't have to do those. Then there are 4 credit problems. And then some homework assignments have advanced practice problems that are outside of the scope of this class. Some students would like to, go in depth into the material. And so some homework assignments would have those extra harder problems, so to speak. Again, those are also optional. They are outside of the scope of this class. The tutorials and the video solutions have extra credit applied to them. Optional, if you do those, you earn those extra credit points, depending on your work, of course. And that extra credit is counted over and above what you earn. Okay, again, everything is set up to the benefit of the students. So the extra credit is counted over and above what you earn. So some students do end up earning more than 100%. For example, homework number 1, you earn 2 points over and above the assignment. Let's say homework number 1 is 10 points and you end up earning 12 points. Those 2 points are not lost. Okay. So let's say, okay, let me back up. Let's say homework number 1 is worth 10 points plus 2 points extra credit. You lose 1 point, so you earn 9 out of 10, but you earn those extra credit points. So now your overall points for the homework number 1 is 11.5. You do not lose those extra 1.5 points. They will be applied to all the other homework assignments as and where you need. So it's a sum total, and sum total at the end of the quarter, you might end up earning more than 100% on your homework assignments. Several students every quarter in my class end up earning that. Those points are not lost. Whatever is above the homework credit, whatever is above the homework total is applied to the rest of your overall grade. So if you end up losing points on your quizzes or the final exam, the extra credit that you earn in the homework will be applied to those. Make sense? Let me know if you have any questions. Let's take a pause. Let me know if you have any questions so far. Any questions? All good so far? Okay. So as I was saying, all the extra credit that you earn is applied to your overall grade. So it is to your, it's optional, but it's to your benefit if you do. Okay. It'll make up for lost points on the homework. It'll make up for lost points on the quizzes, as well as in the final exam. You will not lose those points. There's no maximum cap. Okay. There's no maximum cap. Homework due dates are already posted online, but depending on how fast or slow we cover the material, those dates will be adjusted. And it is synced to Canvas, so it'll show up in Canvas calendar. Okay. The Pearson date is the one that's the most important. The scanned upload is fine if it's late by like a day or two, it's fine. Okay. The scanned upload, there is no penalty. As long as you have written out your work and you upload it, you get the full points. So those 10%, as long as you submit it, is yours. There's no penalty, there's no grading in there. If it's a multiple choice question, just write out the problem number, write down MC. If it's true or false, T/F. You don't have to write out the question. Clear to everyone? You don't have to write out the question or the answer. You just solve it online, and on paper, you just write down problem number, T/F, or MC. That's all you do. Okay. Homework never closes. It's always open. It's always going to stay open. Okay. You don't have to ask for an extension from me if you're late. You can submit it anytime. There is a due date. After that due date, you have a penalty of 5% per day for every 24 hours. Okay. So again, homework always stays open. It's never going to close. If you're late, that's fine. There's a small penalty of 5% of what you earn for every single day that you're late. So you don't have to ask for an extension from me. Yes. The system automatically calculates. Yeah. So there's instructor control is limited to a certain extent. So I can set the points. There are some questions that have sub questions, and I can set the maximum number of points, but I cannot set the points for each sub question. The system automatically does something, and I've tried to figure out the algorithm, but it's just opaque to us. Okay, so we don't have like total control over everything. There are some policies we can control, but not over everything. Also, every single homework problem that you do has a maximum of 30 attempts. That's the maximum that is allowed. Okay. And every attempt you do, deducts about 3%. Okay, multiple choice and true or false. Obviously, if it's true or false, you only have like one attempt, right? True or false is only either or. Multiple choice, I think if it's like 4 options, you have like 2 attempts or 3 attempts just because of the nature of the question. But everything else, you can have like up to 30 attempts. That's the maximum limit, and that's what I said. Every attempt you try, you're going to lose 3 points, 3%, not 3 points, 3%. But it's geared towards maximizing the benefit towards the students. Okay, so 3% for every attempt you take for every single problem. Most students do not go beyond like 7 or 8 attempts. If you get stuck after 4 or 5 attempts, just reach out to me and I'll help you out. There are some quirks in the system sometimes. So if you feel that something is wrong, just send me an email and I'll help you out. Okay, anytime. So any questions about the online homework and or the scanned uploads? Okay. Make sure you read, each and every line of this. I know the course website is very different from what you might be used to. There's a lot of information in there, but definitely at least read the assignments, okay? Quizzes. Quizzes will again be using Pearson, but it won't be the same system that you're using for homework. It'll be a PDF, and the questions will appear on Canvas. I will show it in the classroom, and if you're attending remotely, we'll also you can access that outside of hours too. But quizzes, again, there'll always be an announcement. I'll always let students know in advance what day and time the quizzes are going to be set. Okay. There are no midterm exams in my classes. It's only a series of quizzes. So in a 10-week quarter, I typically try to do like 8 quizzes starting from week 2 onwards. So week 2 to week 9, 8 quizzes. Last quarter, I was able to do like 9 quizzes. So that was pretty good. 8 quizzes, if you sum up the time and the number of topics, would sum up to around 2 midterms or so. But students, I have found, and students also like that the material is spaced out so they don't have to like worry about like, a big chunk of material in like a midterm exam. Okay, so no other midterm exams, just a series of quizzes, and then you have the final exam. According to Cal Poly rules and regulations, I have to schedule the final exam on the last day of class, which would be July 26th for us. Okay, that's a Friday. So it'll be in this classroom, regular class time, 10 to 12, and it'll only be in person. There is no online option for the final exam. Okay. Quizzes, I'm going to, I'll talk about more later. And then final exam. Oh, quizzes, again, summed up together is worth 40% of your overall grade. And then final exam is worth 20%. Okay, so final exam, a student cannot obtain an A without giving the final exam. Okay, final exam is mandatory. It's not optional. Some students, if they're happy with your overall grade, which is like, the maximum grade you can obtain without taking the final would be an 80%. That is if you get 100 in everything else. All the homework assignments, all the quizzes, if you are like at 100%, you can earn a maximum of like B minus. And if you're happy with the B minus, you don't have to take the final. I mean, it's your choice. You don't want to take the final exam. You get a 0 on the final exam. Okay. But that will not be dropped. It will be counted as part of your grade. That's what I'm trying to tell. Okay. So you cannot get a good grade without the final. On the other hand, if you mess up your final, it's not going to affect your grade too much. Okay. So if you've done the homework, you've done the quizzes, but on the final exam, you get 50%, that will still take you as close to an A minus as possible. Okay. So it does not skew in one extreme or the other. Let's see. A through F standard grading scheme. Communication and office hours. My office is down the hallway, room 136. If you exit at this door and you just walk to the middle prong of this E, it's on the right, 117. And I will be in there every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 3 to 4. Okay, from Wednesday, I'll be there from 1 to 4. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 to 4. Okay. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will be off campus. Okay. And my office is a safe place and a safe space for everyone, whether you're a student, staff, faculty, doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is safe in that space. So anytime you want to come in, you want to just work on something, that's absolutely fine. Students, we have like a small area in there where students would always come in. They would work on their homework assignments over there. It's a shared office space between the 5 of us. There's 5 instructors in there. And there is a small area in the middle where students can come in and work. Okay. Well, it's summer right now. The entire building is available for us. Have you all ever wondered why we are in this old building? This building is kind of like notorious. It's one of the oldest building, not just in Cal Poly. It is one of the oldest buildings in the entire CSU system. Okay. But this building has a huge amount of rooms and a huge amount of lab space dedicated to undergraduate student learning. Okay. And that's why we are not, well, we haven't moved on from this building. They need to have enough money to actually take all of our labs and our student spaces and bring it to our new building. So that's going to take a lot of money to do that. So this building is very confusing in that sense, but if you look at it from the top in Google Maps or whatever maps you choose, the building is in the shape of an E. I don't know whether it was on purpose or not, but it's in the shape of an E. Okay. There are faculty members who are like in their 70s who actually went to school in this building when they were a student about 50 years ago. If you walk from here to the bookstore, on the side of the bookstore, there's a wraparound poster, and that poster, there's a black and white poster, and that poster shows an image of this building and the campus surrounding as it was about 40, 50 years ago. So that was around World War II or so. There's a lot of dorms that were converted into like facilities for the military and stuff. But I think it's an interesting piece of history. But anyway, the reason we're in this old building is because there are tons of lab spaces here devoted specifically to undergraduate students. And so we stay in this, old building. Let's see. So that's for office space, assignments, grading. You see attendance, participation, late work. I think I covered them all. Attendance is not mandatory. You want to come in, you want to walk in, walk out anytime you want. It's fine. It doesn't offend me. Okay. There is a discussion that I posted that's just for students to get to know each other. It's a community where students are coming from all different departments. Even if you're from the same department, you may or may not know other students. So it's a small community, small discussion that I open up for all the students. It is not mandatory. Okay, so I don't force each and every one of you to disclose any personal information about you. If you want to just disclose your name, that is fine. But all I'm asking is like, some favorite hobbies, music, movies. You might form a, friendship or an acquaintance, right, with someone new that shares the same interests as you do. So that is in the interest of just fostering like a community within this classroom. So that discussion is due on Saturday. We go to the assignments tab. I think several students did post on there already, but it's due June 29th, Saturday at midnight. Oh, all assignments, by the way, are due at midnight. Okay, on Pearson, on Canvas, everything's due at midnight. Okay. All right, let's see. What else is remaining? Student support, students with dependents or on children. If you have a disability and you need some support, you need a help, you reach out to the DRC as soon as possible. They are the experts and they will help me on how best to support each student and accommodate you without putting you on the spot. Okay, so you reach out to the DRC and they will guide me into helping you, to create the best suited learning environment for each and every one of you. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any questions about anything? Okay. All right, so then let me go to the class notebook. So the class notebook uses Microsoft's OneNote. Microsoft OneNote is a note-taking software. It's actually like a digital notebook. That's where the name comes from. There are several other note-taking software that students like to use, depending on what device you're using, Android tablet, Apple tablet. There are some other e-ink tablets that are used for notes. Depending on what device you're using, you might have a preferred software. But this is what I use because it has some classroom specific technology that I can use. Okay. So I would prefer students sign up for this. Again, it's free. The main purpose is I can annotate. I use this as a digital board, right? So I can write on here. By the way, if you can't read my chicken scratch, let me know. Okay. Anyone familiar with the sentence? I'm sure some of you would be. Anyone? What's so special about the sentence? Absolutely. Student is correct. It uses every single letter of the alphabet, of the English alphabet, A through Z. So if you wish to practice handwriting, this is a sentence to use. There are a couple of variations on the sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, or the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. You just have to move the S around somewhere. Anyway, so this is the way I teach. I have a writing tablet here. I write on it. It's projected here, and that screen is also recorded, and the videos are posted online. If you have looked on the online website, there are links for the lecture videos. There are 6 sections from winter and spring. Those videos are already there. So if you want to jump ahead, that is absolutely fine. You can look at those, older videos, and then the summer videos I will post as we go along. Okay, so it's already all on there. And the reason I put it on there is not because the instructor is lazy or anything like that. Some students like to, get a jump start on some things. And so that's the reason I posted it on there. I never used to do it, but, several students in the past asked me to do it. And so I've been doing it ever since. So if you like to go ahead, that's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do a little bit different is I'm going to talk in terms of the problems that are going to be on the homework. It's a little bit of like a problem-based learning approach that also ties up into active learning environment where students actually solve the problems. And then, then if you have a question, then student asks the instructor questions, and then we take it from there. Okay. So I will go over the basics a little bit, and then also go over the problems that you need to solve for the homework, right? So we study basically 2 different kinds of analysis, broadly split between DC and AC. DC, oh, by the way, what color ink would you prefer? I used to write with red. There's also blue, or, well, I guess this is rainbow colored. How many of you prefer red? 1. Blue? 1, 2, 3. Black? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess black it is. That's the standard, of course. Makes it nice and easy to read. So what was I saying? Oh, so primary analysis for this class is broken down between DC and AC. Again, this is something that I expect students would have been familiar with, but we'll go over what DC is. DC stands for direct, and AC stands for alternating. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention. So the class notebook feature here is that students who sign up from Canvas, again, there's no money for this. I mean, it's just, it's a free service. The annotations that I make here will automatically appear at your end. So if you've already signed up for the class notebook, These annotations and these slides appear at the student's end. You can copy the slides into your own sections because whatever appears at your end in the content library is not editable by the students. Students cannot write on it. I can write on it and it appears to you, but you cannot edit it, which kind of makes sense, right? You don't want to edit the teacher's work, but you can copy the slides into your own section to take notes. Okay, so direct current and alternating current, right? It does sound a little bit redundant because you have direct current, and then we say DC is the acronym for that. And then we say DC current, DC voltage, DC power. So then the word is repeated twice. But usually in electrical engineering or kind of any field, we never use the full form of these words. We simply say AC and DC. That's all we say. Okay. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that the value of DC voltages and DC currents do not change with respect to time. So these graphs show you the values of the current or voltage as a function of time. So time is always on the x-axis. Okay, time is always on the x-axis. The value of the quantity is on the y-axis. That value could be voltage, could be current, could be power. Okay, it could be voltage, current, or power. It doesn't really matter. But on the x-axis, it's always time. So if the value of the current or the voltage or the power doesn't change with respect to time, meaning it is constant with respect to time, it is known as DC. It's a straight line right here, DC. If the value changes, it's called as alternating. The reason it's called as alternating is because when they first came up with it, the value, as you see here, would alternate between a positive number and a negative number in equal values. Okay, so this would be positive and this would be negative below the x-axis and above the x-axis, right? Positive, negative. So it would alternate between a positive and a negative value constantly. But AC is actually used for any quantity that does not have a fixed value. Okay, so it doesn't have to be symmetrical. Could be something like this: square wave, rectangular pulse, triangular wave, or just a random noise signal. The voice of, the sound of my voice is being captured by this microphone. It's converted into electrical signal. But depending on how high or low I speak, right? High is very, that is a high frequency. If I do a low frequency, it's like a deep bass. It's a low frequency. That signal is going to look something like this, very random. Okay, it's going to be a very random signal. Something like this. Even though it is not alternating symmetrically around the x-axis, it is still known as an AC signal. Basically, anything that does not have a fixed value is referred to as AC. And there's a very interesting story behind AC and DC generation. And that came to be known as the current war, or the war of currents. We'll talk about that, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. Everybody heard of Edison? Everybody heard of Tesla? Not the car company, the person. So Nikola Tesla was, let's see, this is about the late 1800s, 1870s, 1880s. He was an inventor, researcher, physicist who was working in Europe in the late 1800s. He was born, I think, I want to say Serbia, or I'm not sure where. In present-day Serbia, I think. I need to look that up again. Always forget. Anyway, he was working in Europe at the time. Edison at the time was already established. He had his factories that were churning out inventions. He is known as the inventor of the light bulb and, lots of other things. The reality is he was like any big corporation. he set up his factories and his corporations, and he employed hundreds of engineers, researchers, scientists who were working for him. If you work for a company, anything that you do as part of your work belongs to the company. Okay? Anything that you do as an employee belongs to that company. It does not become a personal property. So when they say Edison invented the light bulb, he was at the helm of the company. And so whoever is working on there, individual engineers, researchers, scientists, they worked through hundreds of iterations and they had a working light bulb. He was not the first one, but he was the first one to actually market it in a working condition. Okay. He was the first one to market it in a working condition. I actually had no opinion about either one of them, but when I read the history, it turns out apparently that Edison was to use a mild term, was a jerk from all accounts. That's what all historical accounts say. And people who usually run big companies like that are kind of like jerks just because they have to make hard decisions and tough decisions. But apparently he was on a completely different level. That's Edison. Tesla at that time had already established a good reputation. And one of Edison's managers was in Europe. And he specifically wanted Tesla to come over and work for Edison. And so Tesla finally agreed, came over from Europe. He emigrated to the US and worked for Edison. Edison at the time had an unsolvable problem. And Tesla was kind of like a genius. Okay, he's a mathematical genius who could visualize problems in his head and do like theoretical calculations in his head. Many of the inventions that we use today are attributed to him. Okay, everything that is working. Imagine this world without electricity. The power goes out right now. What do we do? I am so dependent on technology that if this machine doesn't work right, I'm like, it's like, what do I do now? Anyway, no electricity, nothing would work. So most of the inventions that we are using today are attributed to his work. Of course, he's not the only one, but he's the one who did a lot of research into that. Anyway, so Edison employed Tesla in his factory. He had an unsolvable problem. Tesla, being the genius that he was, or reputed to be, he solved that problem. And there was a bounty, the prize of 100,000 or something that Edison had put on that problem. When Tesla asked for his prize money, Edison laughed in his face, or so the story goes. Again, none of us were alive during that time, so we only have historical anecdotes to rely on. But apparently they had a falling out, and Tesla left Edison's employment thereafter. Okay. From that point on, Edison did everything in his power to denigrate Tesla and denigrate his work. He would say Tesla was like, just bad person, and his research was crap, and excuse the word. Research was like, wouldn't amount to anything, wouldn't work. And my technology is better, his technology is nothing, stuff like that. He did everything in his power to do that. And then things came to a head. They were bidding and competing on technologies to power up the world. Remember, this is a world where electricity had just been invented in Europe, in Asia, in the US. Researchers were working towards doing this. And people were afraid, right? People are afraid. You're talking about electricity, which at that time, people are only familiar, comes from lightning. And lightning actually injured and killed people. So when you're talking about, oh, I'm going to have electricity. What is electricity? Electricity is artificial lightning. Why the heck do we want lightning in my home? Right? So people were scared. So what Edison did was, Edison was promoting DC. Tesla was working on AC. Okay. Tesla knew, or at least he knew, and then he turned out to be right, that DC is not going to be a commercial success. It was too hard. Not possible within the laws of physics. But Edison was backing DC. He had the money. So he's like, I want my engineers, my salespeople to go out there and sell DC to customers. But again, artificial lightning, trying to sell people on buying artificial lightning is very difficult. So what Edison did was he got his people to hire some random people and put on street shows where they actually used AC to electrocute stray animals. And which is, again, when you hear it once, twice, thrice, and you hear it over and over again, There has to be some truth in there. So that's what it was. A lot of historical anecdotes state that that's what he did. He would hire people, third party, and he would say, oh, these people are not related to me. I don't know who they are, right? That's what he would say. But they were apparently employed by people who were in his employ. The money was coming from his company. They would take stray animals, apply like 1,000 volts AC and electrocute them, and then use his 100 volts DC and say his 100 volts DC is safe. Say we'll like bump up AC to like 1,000 volts and say it's very dangerous, and people were scared, right? Things came to a head. They were like competing all of, it's going back and forth. And then Tesla had the backing of George Westinghouse. Westinghouse is a brand that is still in existence today. They bid on powering up the World's Fair in Chicago, late 1800s, 1880s, 1890s. Okay, their bid was about $100,000 cheaper than Edison's bid for powering it up using DC. $100,000 more than 120 years ago, probably close to like $1 million, right? They won the bid, and Tesla and Westinghouse powered up the entire fair electricity using AC electricity. And people thought it was magic, right? Because at that time, they had only seen gas lamps. They had not seen a safe and effective demonstration of what an AC electricity could do. But when they saw they could roam around at night like it was at the daytime, there's a big deal. Okay. And so they kind of won the competition. And from that point on, it was just AC everywhere. And then eventually even Edison, Edison had to cave in because his salespeople, his managers were coming back and saying that customers are not ready to buy DC. We are having a hard time. We cannot compete. We need to switch to AC if we want to stay in business. And so eventually that's what he did too. And then, they all jumped into AC. And Edison, the company that he started, is still in existence today. Nowadays, it's just more like a hedge fund with owns a few factories. Anyone know? General Electric, GE. Edison merged with another company called Edison Electric. Edison Electric merged with another company that became General Electric. General Electric is GE, that is still in existence today. Now runs more like a hedge fund with a few factories here and there. Okay, that's what happened to his factory or his business. Anyway, Edison died a multimillionaire safely in his bed. Tesla had grand ideas. He was more like a scientist, a physicist, and a researcher. He was always evolving, always trying to do the next big thing. Everything that we are using today in terms of power generation, distribution, anything to do with an inductive coil is attributed to his work. Okay. If you have a smartphone that has a wireless charger built in, that is a Tesla coil. So if it's the back of a smartphone, there is a coil in there, inductive coil, and you put that coil down onto a wireless charger. That charger also has a coil inside it. Both those coils have magnetic fields. When you bring them close contact together, the magnetic fields interlink. And your charger, which is connected to a USB port or a USB charging port, has electricity coming in. That energy is now stored in the magnetic field. When the fields link up, it transfers to your smartphone's coil, where it's again converted into electricity, and then it charges up your phone's battery. That is attributed to the work done by Tesla. AC power and generation, he used transformers that were done by other researchers. The electric motor, hence the car company named after Tesla. Okay, that was the story behind, the war of the currents, AC and DC. The world's first power station was set up near Niagara Falls, and they chose a nice round even number of 100 volts, and they built like a 10% tolerance in there. And so it was up to 110 volts. And once you set up infrastructure to handle that, it stays 110 volts. The rest of the world followed thereafter. And so this North America voltage is 110 to 120 volts. The rest of the world is 220 to 240 volts. The reason is power, P, is the product of voltage and current. If you want to transmit more power You can increase either the voltage or you can increase the current. If you increase the current, power in terms of resistor is also I squared times R. If you increase the current, the power loss that occurs is square of the current. And so instead of increasing the current, you increase the voltage. And that's the logic behind it. So the power losses are reduced. Okay. So again, North America, US runs on 110 to 120 volts. That is the power outlet. That is the rating of the power outlets that you see in this room. Okay. Most places, Asia, Europe, they run at 220 to 240 volts. Okay, it's time for a break. Let's take a break. It's 11:02. Let's meet back here in about 5 minutes, like 11:07. Okay, take a break, use the restroom, have a drink of water, whatever you need to do. Let's see. Pause.